Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a major story that is reshaping the balance of power in the far North. America just exposed Putin's Arctic weakness, and the implications of this development stretch far beyond the icy waters of the Arctic Circle. This is about military power, control of vital sea routes, and the future of global security in one of the most strategically important regions of the world. For years, Russia has invested heavily in turning the Arctic into its own military fortress, building bases, equipping them with radar systems, airfields, and positioning submarines in the icy depths. Moscow has treated the Arctic as a shield for its nuclear arsenal, especially the Northern Fleet, which carries some of Russia's most powerful ballistic missile submarines. These submarines were meant to remain hidden and untouchable under the Arctic ice, but the United States has been working quietly to change that balance. Recently, the deployment of American P-8 Poseidon aircraft to Norway brought this contest into the spotlight. These aircraft are highly advanced submarine hunters equipped with sonar buoys, long-range radars, and torpedoes designed to track and neutralize Russian subs. Their arrival so close to Russian waters signals a bold step from Washington. The message is clear: the United States is now willing to directly monitor Russian activity in an area that Moscow once believed was secure. The Arctic has always been seen as remote and isolated, but melting ice is transforming it into a new front line. Climate change is opening shipping routes previously locked in ice, giving nations faster and cheaper access between the Atlantic and Pacific. Whoever controls those routes gains not only military advantages but also economic leverage. Russia has been banking on this opportunity, planning to dominate the northern sea route and use it as both a trade highway and a military barrier. But America's latest moves show that Moscow does not have the uncontested dominance it imagined. This development matters because Russia's strategic deterrence depends on submarines hiding beneath Arctic waters. These submarines form a core part of its second strike nuclear capability, meaning they are supposed to remain undetected and ready in case of conflict. By deploying sub-hunters so close to Russia, the U.S. is demonstrating that those hidden submarines are no longer invisible. It undermines one of the foundations of Putin's security strategy. Beyond submarines, the U.S. and NATO have also stepped up surface patrols in Arctic waters. American destroyers, along with Norwegian and British allies, have sailed into the Barents Sea right near Russian maritime borders. This is not routine navigation, it is a clear signal that Western forces are willing to operate in what Russia considers its backyard. Such patrols make it harder for Moscow to claim that the Arctic is solely under its control. The optics are powerful. Putin's carefully constructed image of Arctic strength is being challenged head-on. The United States is not acting alone. NATO allies are increasingly part of this mission. Norway, for example, hosts bases and facilities that allow American aircraft and ships to operate closer to Russia. Britain has also deployed maritime patrol aircraft to the region. Together, these moves create a network of surveillance and deterrence across the northern flank. This is the kind of coalition effort that Russia fears most because it stretches its resources thin. Another layer to this story is the battle over infrastructure. The Arctic is home to undersea cables vital for communication, as well as potential pipelines for energy. Russia has long hinted that it could threaten Western infrastructure in times of tension, but the U.S. and NATO presence makes it clear that any such attempts would be closely monitored and possibly countered. This is not just about ships and planes, it is about securing the economic lifelines of the future. Putin has prided himself on turning the Arctic into a fortress, but the reality is more complicated. While Russia has many bases across the region, many are underfunded or struggle with logistics. The extreme conditions of the Arctic make operations costly and maintenance difficult. America exposing these weaknesses is not just about military technology, it is about revealing that Russia cannot fully defend the enormous stretches of icy territory it claims. It is important to understand that this is not an isolated event, but part of a larger geopolitical context. As relations between Russia and the West deteriorate, the Arctic becomes another chessboard. Just as we see battles over influence in Ukraine, the Middle East, and cyberspace, the Arctic is now emerging as the next stage. For the US, it is about containing Russian power. For Russia, it is about maintaining an image of dominance. The exposure of Putin's weakness also sends a message to other global players. China, for instance, has shown increasing interest in the Arctic, branding itself as a near-Arctic state and seeking opportunities for trade routes and resources. If Russia cannot secure its Arctic front, it opens the door for more external influence. America's move not only pressures Moscow, but also serves as a signal to Beijing that Washington is watching closely. This new development raises critical questions. Will Russia escalate its military presence in response to American patrols and surveillance, or will it attempt to downplay the situation to avoid appearing vulnerable? Both options carry risks. Escalation could trigger dangerous encounters between forces in a fragile environment. Downplaying it could weaken Russia's claims of dominance at home and abroad. America's strategy here is clever. It does not rely on confrontation, but rather on exposure. By simply showing presence by monitoring and patrolling, the U.S. undermines the perception of Russian control without firing a single shot. This strategy is low risk for Washington, but high impact against Moscow because it chips away at the myth of an untouchable Arctic fortress. For Putin, this could not come at a worse time. His forces are already stretched in Ukraine. Sanctions have drained economic resources, and public confidence has been shaken by prolonged conflict. Now to see America and NATO operating freely in the Arctic highlights another vulnerability. It challenges his narrative of Russia as a strong, unbreakable power. The broader implication for global security is that the Arctic is no longer a frozen buffer zone. It is now a contested frontier where great powers are actively maneuvering. Submarines, aircraft destroyers, and satellites all converge in this region, creating a highly sensitive environment. Any miscalculation could escalate quickly. But at the same time, the exposure of Russia's weakness could serve as a deterrent, making Moscow more cautious. This story is still developing, but one thing is clear: America has shifted the balance in the Arctic. By exposing Russia's vulnerability, Washington has not only challenged Putin's strategy, but also redefined the rules of engagement in the far north. This is a reminder that in modern geopolitics, perception is as powerful as reality. If the world believes Russia is no longer untouchable in the Arctic, then Moscow's power is already diminished.